Welcome to the GenX Book Club, where nostalgia meets the page. Whether it's a classic from our youth, a memoir from an 80s or 90s icon, or a brand new read with Gen X vibes, we're diving into stories that shaped us. So now grab your book, hit play, and let's turn the page together. Welcome everybody to GenX Book Club, part of GenX Journeys, and I'm Paul Stroessner if you're new here, and along with me is Suzanne Mattaboni and Roehling.
Hello.
All right, and this month's book is Films of Endearment, A Mother, a Son, and the 80s Films That Defined Us by Michael Koresky. Little facts before we dive into it. It was published on May 4th, 2021. And this is a little description. Films of Endearment, A Mother, a Son, and the 80s Films That Defined Us is a heartfelt memoir meets film critique. Over the course of 16 months, Koresky rewatched 10 female-driven films from the 1980s with his mother, movies that shaped him, spoke to her, and revealed new sides of their relationship. It's part love letter to the 80s cinema, part family story, and part reflection on how movies connect us across generations. And this was really a unique book. This was Dell's pick. Yeah, it was a very good one. Something a little bit different and a little bit of everything. Memoir, a look back at movies and everything. So pretty cool. Do you guys want to talk about your thoughts on this book so far?
Well, Dell, it was your pick, so.
I don't have to be first. I recommended this because I had read it. I probably read it about 2 years or so ago, and I kind of forgot about it as we were talking about what books to pick from month to month. And then I don't know, we were doing some stuff around the house, and I was getting rid of some other books and came across this one. And I thought, well, that would be a good one for us to use. Read it a second time, and it reminded me how much I enjoyed this. Now, I love movies, especially 80s movies, so that helps. And there were some movies that, and we kind of, when we met last week, I had not seen, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 of these, so almost half of them. And I went back, and I didn't accomplish my goal to get them all watched before we met tonight, but most of them now. So I added a couple to the list here that I had not seen. But I just think it was a neat idea of his to get to know his mom a little bit better through movies. And I'm that kind of I don't know. I always thought I was a little bit different because after I see a movie with somebody, I like to dissect it and get their opinions and, just different scenes and characters and their thoughts. And most of the time when I go to a movie, they're like, okay, what's next? Like no one wants to talk about the movie. So this was really cool for me to see that he shared that interest, and he got to know his mom through a lot of it and understood some of the things that she went through during that time period that probably didn't, because he was so young and we were so young, that we weren't even thinking about when we were watching these movies. I mean, 9 to 5 was a comedy, but as you go back and look at it now, there were some serious issues there that were happening in the workplace that I think now would never be acceptable. So, and just some of these other movies and what the female lead characters had to deal with in a lot of these films, just kind of eye-opening. So.
Yeah. And with that, she brought up her own work experience and how much it paralleled that. So yeah, it was kind of eye-opening. Yeah, I don't think, I haven't seen that in a while, probably a couple of decades. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while. So
there was talk of a sequel a couple of years back. I don't know how that would have worked, but that never happened. But, Suzanne, what are your thoughts? You probably have a completely different perspective than both of us.
Well, it depends. First off, I was struck by the fact that it's really, really beautifully written. As a writer, I'm always very interested in the language and how the book is composed. And he is really, really talented. But yet he doesn't really talk about himself as a writer. He talks about himself as a film critic, like movies were his life. He wasn't looking to be this wonderful writer with such a great command of the language. But along the way, it's definitely what he's become. I don't know if that's what he cares to identify himself as. Speaking of identification, I thought it was interesting. I mean, obviously, I love 80s movies too, and I had seen most of these. I went back and watched Terms of Endearment, which is one of the, it was a very popular, big popular movie at the time. But that was, maybe there was one other that I hadn't seen, unless I'm forgetting. But I did see most of these, or at least had some knowledge of most of them, because I did also work a little bit in film in the 80s for film companies. And the thing is, my mother is a movie fanatic, and we would interpret a lot of things in life through movies also. So I thought a lot of that was interesting, the way that he got to know his family and what his mother had been through, and how different it was. Like we talk a lot ourselves about what this meant to me when I saw it as a young person, and what it means seeing it through different eyes now that you're older, or you're a parent, or you've been through the system where you've had to fight for your career and what have you. It always makes a big difference. But I know that there were a couple of very serious things that he felt a lot of these movies reflected on and revealed things about in his life, including a lot of it was, his mother's role as both a mother, or in the workplace, or as a caretaker of his father, who then died, had dementia for a long time, and then died young, which her father died young also. So he's kind of seeing both sides now of being the child who loses a father at about the same age that his mother did, and getting to kind of try to cope with that and experience that, and realize that his mother was dealing with that very same thing when he was young. So some of those things were very poignant, and very, the way that he analyzed them was very intelligent, and it was nice to go through that revelation with him. And then, of course, there was a lot of revelation that he found about himself and his own sexual orientation, which, I think it added a lot of interest to the book. I'm almost wondering if this wouldn't really be that much of a memoir if it were not for that. So, it was definitely interesting and definitely eloquent. And, some of the movies I thought it was going to be like fun movies that, from the 80s that we appreciated. It was not quite fun movies, maybe one.
Yeah.
But I think it was much more serious tones that he chose to revisit. So that's my initial impression.
Well, and the first time I read it, I actually read the book. The second time I listened to the audiobook, and to hear him talk about these things, it was a whole different feeling than just reading the words on the paper. So to go back to what you had talked about, Suzanne, that really you feel for him and what he's going through in a lot of these cases, and the confusion, and the mourning of his father, and it was just a different way to experience the book going through the audiobook.
Yeah, so he did his own narration. He did his own audiobook.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, with memoirs, I guess you kind of need to hear that voice. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. Yeah, I wonder what it would be like listening to a memoir that somebody else was narrating. Yeah, that would be interesting. Because I'm sure they're out there, because some people might feel uncomfortable reading. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Because, it does take a certain skill.
I was going to ask you both. He talked about in the book that his mom is the one that sort of introduced him to movies. And I think we all have that person. It sounds like we're all movie buffs. Suzanne, maybe was it your mom that did that for you?
Well, absolutely. I guess my father is I guess a movie person too, but because she's dragging him to movies, just that they just see movies and movies. And my parents are retired now. They go to movies that's probably a couple times a week. But my mother she was like a big science fiction fan, and horror, and she's just like a little kid. She gets so excited about everything. And then there was, as we got older, like we had a pact when I was like in my 20s, that we would go see every single Mel Gibson movie that came out together. It was just what we did, so we added kind of different tiers of interest to our, movie going, but definitely. And then my brother became a cameraman and a videographer. So he was always a big movie person
What?
too. And he's written screenplays and stuff. So we did kind of turn out to be an entertainment type of family.
Well, for me, as far as movies go, yeah, probably my dad with all the war movies, and he was into science fiction as well. So he got me into Star Trek, and I saw those movies, and Star Trek led to Star Wars. But I think with my mom, a lot of it was the television, especially the miniseries. Like I remember the miniseries Centennial and North and South, and well, as far as movies, she loved The Sound of Music and all that. So
yeah.
yes,
See,
yeah. So there was all that.
yeah. See, my mother, I guess we stretched in those directions too, because she did watch a lot of TV, and she watched the sci-fi on TV also, to the point where this was just on in the house all the time, where there were all these kind of weird, very bad, what they called at the time B movies. That B science fiction movies that would play in my house when I was really little. So this was like maybe the early 70s. And I have this encyclopedic knowledge of all these terrible, terrible sci-fi and horror films, in black and white that used to play, on the Chiller Theater and stuff. And she loved Hollywood musicals, and we would watch everything. And I became like a huge theater person and went on to do shows and that kind of thing. So I saw a lot of those movies too. I saw like every Hollywood musical under the sun in Technicolor. It was beautiful.
Yeah, my mom loved those too, and like all the Disney movies and stuff, like the original Parent Trap and all that.
Yeah.
Did you guys have the Creature double feature on Saturday mornings? Or maybe that's just it's on a Boston channel here. Like on Saturday after the cartoons were over, like the early afternoon, it was on Creature double feature, and it's exactly what you described in Suzanne. It was all the Godzilla movies and King Kong, but then it was like all those B science fiction movies.
Yeah, there was
so
some
that brought that back.
Similar program called, I think it was called Chiller Theater, and there was, I don't know if anybody's from the New York area. People still remember in horror, there was like a promo for that where there was like claymation, and you didn't see that this now where you see it everywhere because it's all computer generated. At the time, it was like a hand that came up from the ground and kind of did this and like spelled out chiller. Like anybody from the New York area is going, yes, yes, yes. It was really creepy. And they played all these old horrifying, movies, and sometimes the acting was really, really terrible. But as a child, you're still scared to death. They still scared me to death. And some of them were pretty good. Like I remember seeing the original Shrinking Man and the original The Fly, where people are like in terrible jeopardy through this, and fighting with spiders and all that. This was just horrible. But I had a lot of nightmares. Because she would just, sit me on the floor, and she'd be like ironing or something and watching all these terrible horror movies. It's true.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, and I also thought it was interesting that because he didn't specify for her to pick out what decade. He asked her what decade was her favorite, even though she was born in 1948. So you would think like the classic Hollywood era would have been her era with the 1950s and 1960s, all the huge actors and everything. But she picked the 1980s. That was her favorite because that's when it was her first full decade of being a mother and raising young children. And this was also a good point. It's also when the VCRs came out. So then if you didn't catch the movie in the theater, or even cable TV for that matter, I don't think you mentioned that, but yeah, then you'd be able to, if you didn't catch it in the theater, you could watch it at home. So yeah, so I could see why they went with that. And
yeah, it's true. That's the first time you were able to kind of control your viewing of movies, because beforehand, cable came out, but not everybody had cable when it first came out. And even then they would pick like, a couple movies per month, and they would just play them constantly. And before that, forget it. You went to see something in the movies and you would just go back and see it in the movie theater over and over again if you wanted to see it again, because it wasn't going to come on to television for like 4 or 5 years. You know, it took forever to be able to see a big movie on television. But when you hit the 80s and you were able to just go out and get videotapes, it's true. You could see that movie when you wanted, with whom you wanted to, and, you know, stop and talk about the scene in the middle if you wanted to. So you were a lot more in control. That is funny because, you know, like our parents would probably, like you're saying, talk about like the golden age of Hollywood as being those movies from the 50s and, you know, those kind of Hollywood musicals and such. But yet we can look back now, and I think the 80s were kind of a golden period for movies, because, and the things that he was describing a lot of their choices were all like very character-driven, female-driven stories, you know, female leads. And he was explaining that these movies aren't really in style anymore. Like, they don't really make character-driven movies anymore. And that didn't even really hit me until reading someone else say that, because I don't go to the movies nearly as much as I used to. But maybe that's part of the reason why, because I look at it like, something that young kids do, you know, to go see things blow up or people get slashed by, you know, by the scream monster or what have you. But I just kind of thought maybe those movies were out there and I just wasn't that interested anymore because I have a different kind of life. But sadly, no, maybe they're not making them. It's not how they can make money anymore. They just make sequels and comic book movies and superhero movies and, you know, and slasher movies. And that's really sad. It's really sad.
Yeah, maybe these days it's more going on to the streaming services like Netflix and all that. I'm not sure. We do in Providence, Rhode Island. I know there are a couple of those small local theaters, that art house theaters and stuff, so that they'll play stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's mostly all the big blockbusters that you see in the main theaters these days. Yeah.
No, I should have written down each of the movies for each year that because I'm trying to remember them now.
Oh, I got you. I was just actually going to get into that.
Yep,
yeah.
Good for you. And I don't want to bring it up.
Right, so,
you know, as I said, it upsets my internet connection if I pull too many things up.
Oh, yeah. All right, yeah. So we talked about 9 to 5 was 1980. Then, do you just want me to go through the list first, or do you want to like stop at each one for a minute? Because
we could do each one.
Okay. So the 1981, all right, we kind of talked about 95, and the next one was interested in Mommy Dearest.
Mommy Dearest.
Mommy Dearest was scary. Joan Crawford, yeah.
Speaking of horror movies.
Yes.
Yeah. I guess it wasn't supposed to be a horror movie, though. I don't know. I'm still wondering how much of that is true and how much of it is drama.
Yeah.
And he was wondering also. But it was very campy, and I don't know, it was a big hit. They keep talking about it like, well, it ended her career, but I mean, everybody knew the movie. Everybody knew it.
Yeah. Yeah, it really connected with them because you know, if this was all correct, she probably, it sounds like she had borderline personality disorder, Joan Crawford, and then Michael's grandmother, his mother's mother, seemed to have the same personality. So it's like it sounded like she was like starting to go through a little bit of trauma there, you know.
Yeah,
watching
that's
that
right.
again and reliving
that was kind of sad. See, at the time when you watched the movie, I don't think there was any definition of borderline personality disorder. You know, they were just like, well, she's crazy. You know, like they didn't identify different type of disorders, and they, on top of that, didn't really have a lot of ways to deal with them. So it's kind of sad that they just kind of pegged you as being, you know, difficult or being crazy or being, you know, a terrible mother, or when actually it was just, you know, maybe some kind of chemical imbalance that, you know, some mental illness that they were dealing with. But the fact that his mother was able to so clearly say, yes, that behavior right there, that sentence, my mother said that all the time, to just, to kind of document that, yeah, this is a very specific issue, mental health issue that this woman had. And it's just being made into like this campy material, as opposed to now it would be treated as something that someone could address,
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of sad to me. And never thought for a moment when I was watching it, oh, well, she might be bipolar or,
Mm-hmm.
whatever exactly it might be. We just never thought of things that way.
I was waiting for Child Protective Services to show up, but I remembered it was 1981.
Right.
So I think back then it was like, yeah, you just deal with it,
Yeah.
Yeah, especially, if it's a wealthy person and,
Yeah.
Who's going to come look and see what's in her refrigerator,
Right.
Jeez.
Yes, I know somebody that had that. Yeah, she's since passed, but yeah, and watching this again, it's like the exact type of thing. So yeah, like the one thing that stood out to me was like the scene in the pool with the little girls in the pool, and then Joe Crawford wants to like race her, and then like and then like she like beats her. Yeah, it's like rubbing in her face. Yeah.
But she was so competitive though, and in an industry where she was constantly being judged and had to pick people out. So maybe that kind of
had something to do with
mind. It was just what you do, So
yep.
God.
Yeah. So that was that was a tough one. Yeah, it's funny. I always when I was younger, I always conflated Mommy Dearest with Flowers in the Attic for some reason.
Yeah, well, that probably came out around the same time. I think that was
around the same time. I think.
Yeah, those books came out. So
yeah.
Maybe that was, I don't know.
I'm glad he
torturous mother was kind of a theme.
Yeah.
I didn't see that movie when it was out, and I watched it maybe about 10 years ago. I'm like, oh, I should have just not. Yeah, I should have just kept my streak of not watching it. How disturbing. And I think they redid it. I think they redid the movie. Yeah. So I don't know, but yeah, so disturbing.
Yeah. But those were my mom books. That's another thing. My mom, if anything, more of the movies, she was a reader, so she read like if there were books of these songs, she read those. She's still is an avid reader and everything. So yeah.
Yeah, my mom.
So I remember seeing these
books. I stole that book. I stole Flowers in the Attic from her and read it. She didn't know I was reading her book. I was like 11. Seriously. I read The Shining when I was like 12 years old.
Oh yeah, I did that when I was The Shining. Oh no, I'm sorry. It was Salem's Lot that I read when I was like 10.
Oh my God, that one's worse. But what the hell? She was bringing me to all the terrifying movies. Like I saw The Omen when I was like 5 or something. In the drive-in. She would take us to the drive-in because then she didn't have to be a babysitter. So me and my brother were always being dragged along to the drive-in. All these terrifying movies that, of course, I would listen to. I couldn't go to sleep. They were riveting. But Nightmares, oh my God. It was such a terrifying movie. But yeah. Yeah, I stole her books too.
Oh God, 1982. This is one I never even heard of before. Come Back to the Five and Dime, Jimmy Dean. And I think Michael's the one that could relate to this because, well, he's gay, but there's apparently, I didn't watch it yet, but there's like a trans woman in this. So, I'm surprised I never heard of this because it's a really good cast and everything. So, and it is free on YouTube. I remember
hearing about it, yeah. I remember hearing about it as a play also. I think I remember seeing commercials. Once again, if you live in the New York area, at the time, they would put television commercials on for the Broadway shows and off-Broadway shows even. So you would get to see little clips of them. They would videotape the performances, and that would be the commercial. I do remember. I remember the play. I remember the movie. I remember them interviewing Cher because it was her first movie role, and nobody was really taking her very seriously. But I remember hearing her talk about the movie and being kind of impressed that she really did sound very natural. Like she was just not like, I'm a movie star. It was just kind of like, yeah, I'm nervous. I'm going to have to, like when the show, I'm going to have to go run to the bathroom and pee. I'm going to be so nervous. I don't know. And I thought that was really funny that she was just so frank about, being about this performance that she had to do. So, but supposedly, she did well. But yeah, interesting. I did not remember the subject matter, being so controversial, which it would have been at the time. But yeah, I guess good for them for, getting a green light on that. I guess it would have to be a play first if somebody just came to them and said, okay, here's my movie script. And, somebody's going to be surprised, trans woman. And that's the main character. They probably would have been, had the door slammed in their face in 1982?
Well, yeah.
82.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was limited.
I went back and watched.
People...
Yeah, I went back and watched it. Paul, you mentioned it's free on YouTube and legally, by the way. So
yeah, right. Yeah.
But it was a reminder, and I read the chapter obviously first, and then I went back and watched the movie just to kind of see how he was feeling through this, and trying to identify with somebody who just wasn't accepted. And you feel that when you're watching this movie, and there's a character in the film that, makes a point to, Karen Black is the actress, lets her character know, like, basically, I'm not, no matter what you say, I'm not going to accept you. And it's a reminder of, and I think in some cases we're still there in some parts of society, but I think it's a reminder of maybe how far we've come. But and you kind of look back on it and go, gosh, why were people treated that way? Anyway, it was a good movie. I'm glad I watched it, but I had not seen it, and I'd heard of it, never seen it. And Suzanne, as you were talking, I was thinking, I wonder if because of the subject matter, you both said you'd only heard of it, kind of knew a little bit about it, and Paul, you said you had not heard. I wonder if it's because of the subject matter, that's why we didn't hear about it. Or why we just, maybe knew a little bit about it. So,
that's an interesting point. That maybe it just
wasn't
particularly publicized, because of the subject matter. People weren't getting behind it in the, corporate offices, I guess, who would need to back that, back that stuff and push it. So that's interesting.
Yeah, somebody back then was able to get it made, and that's great.
That's right.
But today I don't, probably wouldn't even give it a second thought, So,
but in some areas,
yeah, that's true. But just hearing his, what he was going through back then, and being able to identify with it. It's, as you watch it, just kind of think of that if you do go back and watch the movie.
See, 1983 was kind of the namesake of this in terms of Endearment. I can't remember if I actually even saw that. I don't think I've seen this. I've just, just from, seeing scenes from it and everything. I don't think I ever sat and watched the whole movie before.
So I'm not ashamed to admit this, but there are two movies that I will cry at the very end: Home Alone and Terms of Endearment. So there you go.
Not Field of Dreams?
No.
Oh, wow.
I have a good feeling of Field of Dreams. Yeah. I mean, it's very touching, but yeah, I don't know what it is about this movie, but it's I've watched it I don't know how many times, and maybe I'm relating to it, in some ways that he did as well. But it's such a good movie and such a great cast, and the characters, you become invested in them, and it's just, Shirley MacLaine's strong in it. Deborah Winger is strong in it. Two different paths of life that they both went, and you kind of understand, with Shirley MacLaine, kind of the husband dies and she's got to raise her daughter by herself, and her daughter, she doesn't ever agree with anything she does, just kind of an overbearing mom, very judgmental. It's one of the best movies of the decade.
I didn't see it back in the day, as they say. I did rewatch that one and realized that I had seen, like you were saying, I had seen a lot of clips from the movie. I was recognizing a lot of the scenes. I don't know, maybe they played it at the Academy Awards or something, but I know that I saw that death scene with Deborah Winger and Shirley MacLaine, and I know that I'd seen other clips of some of the the more sad scenes, or that they are, of course, superbly acted throughout. In watching it, I definitely recognize kind of the storytelling style of the 80s. And, it's so starkly different from anything that you watch today when you're, you kind of like get into these Netflix series and there's a whole different like pace and stuff. So that sense of being very character driven, I think that was really part of the appeal of terms of endearment. That was definitely, you were following these people through their lives and getting little vignettes of them going from different phases throughout, where they're just trying to cope with different elements, including, for Deborah Winger, seemed to make very almost purposefully bad choices in her life, like almost to get back at her mother. So it was a really bad dynamic that they had, but they still seemed to, when they really needed to support each other, So it was an interesting, it was almost like a very long vignette,
Mm-hmm.
Slice of life kind of vignette, but really, really beautiful to watch in how emotional the performances were. So, and yeah, it made me very, very sad. Very, very sad, because things, how things
he
can
talks
turn
about
on
it
a
that
dime.
yeah, he talks about the beginning of the movie as, somewhat of a comedy, a dramedy, or whatever you want to call it. And then all of a sudden, halfway through, 3/4 of the way through the movie, it's like, this is a tragedy. And it, I know he talked a lot about what he went through with his dad
Yep.
during that chapter. And, again, listening to the audiobook, it's a whole different feel to it. But it kind of reminded me, I was thinking back to that, Suzanne, you mentioned the scene where, Deborah Winger, that last scene between her and Shirley MacLaine, where Deborah Winger's in bed and she looks at Shirley MacLaine, and, that last moment, and then she's gone.
This little wave.
And yeah. And it reminds you of people that, that have been so important in your life that are gone. And for me, like my grandmother, I was there with my grandmother when she passed away. I was the only one in the room with her. And it's just, it reminds you of that moment and that emotion that you feel. And the other thing too, for me, is that it's a whole different feel watching this movie now with kids. Because I think of, what if that was my daughter? And at one point, after she passes, I think she says a line like, there's nothing harder, or something like that. Or I didn't think it would be this, I thought I would be ready for this. And, you just think, oh my gosh, what if something happened to one of my kids? What if I was in that room and, and I'm there having to support my child, now, and they're gone. I mean, it's not supposed to work that way. So I think, from that standpoint, it's, I'm glad he picked that movie, but I'm sure watching that film was extremely tough for him, just because of the whole subject matter. So I'll stop talking. Sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
Long-winded on that one.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. But that you just bring up another point in my head that this would be one of those movies that you watch back in the day, and then when you watch it when you're older, especially when you've been through stuff, that you see it a whole different way, whole different feeling. Yeah.
Well, and I not to talk about myself, I just related to this.
That's what we're here for. Yeah.
But there was one, the one scene that he refers to, and my mom's probably going to watch this, so I got to be careful with what I say here. So, but we, we've had ups and downs in our relationship. But I one thing I remember, I had this. I was admitted to the hospital when I was in college, and they wanted to do a procedure on me, and I was in so much pain, and I was like, I told her, I'm like, I don't want them to do, like, I need this pain to go away first before they do it. And she literally went into one of her Shirley MacLaine moments in the scene, the scene where she's like, give my daughter the shot. Like, it was, obviously saying these different, but she stood up for me, and I will always remember that. But I think in that moment, despite the relationship that Shirley MacLaine had with Deborah Winger's character in the film, that she was right there. Like, I am going to, be there for you, and I am not going to let you suffer anymore right now. Like, and I just think that is such an emotional moment in that film. So, but again, going back to Michael and what he went through, just, seeing his father deteriorate like he did, it had to be really, really difficult watching that film.
And
Sorry, I think I've revealed more about myself on this podcast than I have.
Yeah, I love it.
Combined, I'm so sorry.
Don't apologize. I love it. I love
it. And Paul, I mean, I know you went through some stuff as well too. So, I'm not taking anything away from that. But I know when your father passed, you and I were texting and talking, and so I know that had to be tough. We've all experienced something like that. It's just a reminder, like you said, Suzanne, it can all change in an instant. So, you're just going along, with your business, and then all of a sudden you get bad news, and life changes dramatically in a second. So, all right. So this has been very uplifting. I'm so sorry.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
It is the saddest chapter in the book, so it might as well be the saddest part of the podcast.
It's true. And I don't think he focuses on a lot of, happy, happy, joy type of things. It's a serious book.
Right.
No.
And he chose serious themes to reflect on. So
yeah, the 80s is known for like the big like action movies, the big loud stuff, but there was just as many films like this that were awesome. This is a good reminder. It's cool looking at something different perspectives, different types of movies. Yeah, so 1984 was Country with Jessica Lange and Sam Shepard.
Right. Have you seen the movie?
That's another one I probably haven't seen in about 30 years.
I have to be honest. I think I was recognizing scenes. I think I might have seen it, or else how sometimes they tend to have two movies come out at the same time and they're almost the same movie. Wasn't there one very similar to this with Mel Gibson, who he was a farmer? See, I'm not really sure if I'm remembering that movie or I saw both.
Yeah, you are, and there were, I think there were 3 or 4. There's a Sally Field movie that came out, and the Mel Gibson movie, and Sissy Spacek. Another one.
I'm not sure
can't
if I
remember
saw
the titles,
both of them, and I'm remembering scenes from either. But yeah, that was kind of a decent theme, I think, in the 80s. They came out with several similar movies at the same time, and I remember feeling it was very desperate feeling. Having to live. Well, and
I had completely forgot about the farmers and all of the financial issues that they had back in the 80s, and he talked about suicides and farmers increased during that time period, and this film was a reflection of that. And Jessica Lange is I didn't finish the film. I went back and started to watch it, but she's so strong in this movie. But it's not uplifting at all. I mean, you're right there with the plight of what they're going through. But again, it's just another reminder of how bad things were, at that point for certain people, and especially the farmers.
Yeah, well, we're getting there again now. So
yeah. I mean, there were a lot of great things in the 80s, but that was
right.
That was
when you think in the 80s, you think more of Reaganomics and everybody, having preppies having more money than they knew what to do with, and buying all these fancy cars and doing drugs in the bathroom and that kind of stuff. You don't stop and remember that there was another side to that, where they were going through kind of almost like a new Dust Bowl type of thing was happening out there. A lot of crises going on in the farm countries. So,
yeah, and I think this is around the time when Willie Nelson actually started the Farm Aid.
Oh yeah,
Willie, John
right.
Mellencamp, and Neil Young. Yeah,
right, yeah.
And I think it's still going on today. Yeah,
I think you're right.
But yeah, John Mellencamp's your homeboy, so you probably know about
that. Yeah. About 30 minutes down the street.
Invite him on. Did he write about
Walk over there with the microphone. Yeah.
What was that? I didn't hear you. Sorry.
Invite him on. Did he write a memoir?
Oh, yeah. I'll see what I can do.
Okay. Gotta have some levity here in this conversation.
Go over there with your microphone and supercomputer that you got, whatever you have there.
whatever I got at Costco for a cheap price. So,
but I think like one of the main points out of this with him, it's showing how because like with the farm going down, everything like Sam Shepard felt that he couldn't provide. So it's the point is that when men can't feel like they can provide anymore, they lose their masculine center, and because that's what they were always told what they had to do.
Yeah, what I remember from watching the movie here was Jessica Lange's trying to keep everybody together, and there's one just horrible scene where she this guy's on the verge of killing himself, and she goes and does everything she can to make sure he doesn't, and she walks out of the barn, and then you hear this gunshot. I mean, just gut wrenching. So, but again, just be prepared if you watch that movie that it is just going to just remind you of how things were.
Yep. All right, and this brings us to another happy movie, The Color Purple, 1985. Another incredible cast.
See, this was not light stuff that he was
yeah.
Especially these first few.
Yeah.
I read the book in college. I remember thinking, and it wasn't even for like racial reasons, I remember having similar thoughts that Steven Spielberg was probably just the most inappropriate person to be doing a film version of this book, because it did have such serious themes, and he's just like kind of like bouncy music in the background and cool lighting, and just, I mean, he's a terrific storyteller, and I think he learned to be better at handling more dramatic themes or more serious themes. I mean, it's an okay adaptation, and it's nice that somebody decided they were going to take it on and took this subject matter so seriously. But I still feel like it had almost like this Disney, cutesy feel to it that to me was like, well, did he even read this book? Like, did he even read this? So it's hard for me to get on board with saying that was a great version of the story. But it was it was a really amazing book. So,
did you see the musical? Was it a musical that was released recently?
No, and I don't know how you're going to make that into a musical. Once again, I feel the same way. How could they make that into a musical? To me, that's just people just going to break out into song about being an abused wife and harboring lesbian feelings for this other person, and it was horrible. Like in reading the story, in reading the book, I felt like she was almost still a slave. Like she didn't even give her husband a name. She called him Mr., which is like one letter off from master. To me, it sounded like a woman in this age of that, of that standing in that race was still kind of not that much better off than a woman, who was a slave. She was beaten. She was, she didn't have any love for this person. It was just terrible. It was a terrible situation. And it was supposed to be a story of someone, kind of overcoming that to a certain degree and finding her children and her sister in the end, etc. But it was difficult to live through that situation with her. And I still can't figure out how they made that into a musical. I can't watch it.
Did they? I know they did it on Broadway, but did they release it as a film too? They released a musical as a film. Yeah, that's what I thought.
It came out a year ago, 2 years ago. I don't remember, but yeah.
Yeah, because I knew they did a Broadway musical of it. So yeah,
I need to go back and rewatch it just to see, because I don't remember. I don't remember that feeling from it, Suzanne, but I'll look for that as I go back and watch it again. Yeah.
I never saw it, but that's kind of what he was talking about in Michael, because he picked this because of his mother had the book and everything. So he was kind of talking about the adaptation and everything. Huh. Yeah, I wonder if the musical is based on the movie rather than the book. So yeah, that'd be
maybe
interesting
it
if they
is.
redid. Yeah, maybe it would be good if they actually redid it. More in line with the book.
Were
But
there were there any other movies that you can think of in the '80s that covered subject matter? I mean, maybe Glory a little bit.
Glory
Um,
was wonderful
well, as
anything
movie.
far as
else that was,
race,
yeah, in that time period? I'm trying to
I'd
think if there
probably have
was
to think of
anything.
it only
Yeah,
because those movies weren't necessarily aimed at me. So,
right?
uh,
Exactly.
yeah,
but Glory is a good example. That was just a wonderful film. I
yeah.
cried at that one too.
Yeah, yeah, that was a
Uh,
good one.
Well, not that this has in particular with Color Purple, but I did like sort of behind the scenes stuff that he brought in on the movies. I'm always interested in that,
mhm.
the story behind the movie kind of thing. And he talked a little bit about the Steven Spielberg selection, and all of the movies he had done prior to that were all male lead characters.
Mhm.
So this was a complete different task for him. So, but I'll go back and watch it and just kind of see what I get out of it.
Yep. All right, and this brings us to maybe the only fun movie, Aliens. We actually, Dell and I actually did a episode, Return of the '80s, on this, and it's actually like one of the more popular episodes we had. So yeah,
It's a great movie.
yeah,
And one of the few movies
Absolutely.
that could be argued that the sequel might be better than the original, but I
Right.
would say they're comparable. But
Right. That and Terminator 2, I would say. And they were similar time frame. It was
mhm.
like bang, bang. These great big sequels were coming out that were far glossier and more exciting than the originals, which seemed to be like that director kind of testing the waters. And then they get a big budget and really blow everything completely out of the water. So, but Aliens was an amazing movie. And all the things that he was talking about, the kind of feminist bend that it had, I remember that being really fairly acknowledged at the time, that Sigourney Weaver was acting as a surrogate mother, and that even the monster was acting as a
Oh
mother
yeah,
in protecting all the little pods that were eventually, set on fire. I don't think that's a um, retrospective uh, view of it. I think at the time, everybody, I remember reading, was it in Rolling Stone or, some big entertainment magazine where they were kind of like, yeah, she's Mother of the Year. So, and she
yeah,
was tough. And they had that one, tough Marine who was a woman who he
hmm,
mentions some of that dialogue that she has. But those were
yeah,
kick-ass characters, and kick-ass women in that film. And it was a terrific, exciting film. Nothing was sacrificed for that, feminist point of view. So,
I wonder what the thinking was, because she's, spoiler alert here, but she's the only one to survive the original movie, the crew member to survive. So they obviously had some plan for her down the road, but it was 6 or 7 years later before the sequel happened. But she's such a strong, I mean, she just take charge, and I'm not, I'm going to protect Newt, the character, and I'm going to protect my crew the best I can, and I'm going to do. So she takes over basically from these men who are supposed to be in charge of the operation. So I mean, there's the one scene, and Paul and I dissected the movie, but the one scene where the Marines go into that area, and the aliens are all on the walls, they're coming out of the walls and whatever, and Gorman, the guy in charge of the mission, just absolutely freezes. He doesn't even know what to
yeah,
do,
he
and
just
she like
folds.
basically knocks him out of the way, and goes to drive that whatever car or whatever it is
yeah,
that their tank, or and busts in, and lets them, tries to rescue as many as she can. So but yeah, I mean, back in that time, back in the mid '80s, that was, have a lead character like that to basically shove the men out of the way because they're incompetent and they don't, they're not able to do up to the job here. That
Except Hicks.
that was impressive. Yeah, yeah, and I think it
Much on him
solidified
too.
her as, the leading lady of Hollywood at the time. So
Yeah, she did all right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
until she did Ghostbusters 2. And then, but that's all right. We'll pretend that movie didn't
Come on,
happen.
they were fun movies.
Let's see. And then 1987 was, I never saw this one, Baby Boom. So
Oh, see,
again,
Baby
it
I
talks
really
about
liked.
it sounds like it was good. I'll have to check that out. Yeah, about like the woman balancing her work life with the child, and another. It kind of resembles 9 to 5 with the way women treated in the workplace, whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when they're when doing childcare.
Right. It's not, the workplace was not a family friendly type of place at that time period. I remember seeing this. Had to just started in the workforce and was kind of trying to picture what my life was going to be. And I did not have any children, but was still kind of, I don't know, the anxiety. So you guys didn't see the movie? Neither of you have seen Baby Boom?
No,
I've seen it.
I felt like, despite her being Diane Keaton starting out as this, really high powered, she called herself Tiger Lady, advertising queen, and I went into advertising eventually, so kind of that kind of felt a little close to home, but I felt like there was a ton of anxiety in her life, having made the change and deciding to, she gets this baby kind of dumped in her lap that one of her cousins died and left their baby to her for whatever ridiculous reason that would be. But so she decides to try and make a life in Vermont and buys this, 100-year-old colonial home or something that's falling apart, and she can't afford all the repairs, it turns out. And she like, the anxiety of starting my life, I think, like, I saw a lot of parallels of the anxiety of her trying to get out of that rat race and deal with a new life. So I kind of identified a lot with her, and I feel like, I don't know, it was a very stressful thing for a woman. I mean, maybe it's just as stressful for men to try and be in the, these high power positions, but I don't know. I felt like there's a lot of anxiety in that movie, despite it being a comedy and working out okay. And I have to object to, they had said that there seemed to be interpreting that, and especially the end of the movie, as, oh, well, women can't have it all. You have to just decide you're going to be domestic and sit home in an apple orchard with your baby, or you're the tiger lady who's the successful businesswoman. But, I kind of resent that kind of talk. I mean, women make choices just like anybody else. If you want to do that, you choose to do that. It doesn't mean that you can't choose to also be working and still have a relationship with your children, and that's, in that respect, I think women have more choices than men, because not a lot of people tell men they're allowed to just, like, sit home with their kid. And I think there's still a stigma to that, even though it's happening more than it used to.
It made me think about Kramer versus Kramer, if you remember that film from the late 70s, and what Dustin Hoffman had to go through because he was prioritized. I mean, he went from, and it's the same story or same feeling that Diane Keaton's character had, where everybody loved her and she was doing a great job, and the company, she was all for the company, and same thing with, and then all of a sudden you prioritize your children, and then we have some issues. And I think that's what she was experiencing. Right. Yeah. So, but again, I think you said it. It's about choices, and and she made her choices in the film, and see what happens.
Yeah, and she wasn't just, she didn't just choose to just, like, sit home with the baby and sing lullabies. She was still running the company. Right. She was just doing it kind of more on her own terms. So I don't see that as compromising. I see that as her making her life work on as many levels as she possibly could. And maybe it's not the worst thing in the world that you can't have it all and have everything all at once. I kind of deal with that in my book, because I was one of those girls, like I'm saying, who was poured into the workplace and kind of was told you can have it all now. You can do everything. You can have children and life and relationships and a career and education. But yeah, you can have all that stuff, but you still have to make choices, and you can't have it all at once. You kind of have to have a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And I don't think it's that much different from what, the choices men have to make. So I don't like seeing people get judgy about it.
It seems like things have improved. But seems like there's more companies that are more family friendly these days, especially since from back then.
Yeah, I think there's still the work is first
mm-hmm.
with a lot of businesses. I mean, I know people I talk to, and the appearances that their companies understanding, but when it comes down to it, work comes first. But I get it. I see both sides.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's totally blown up now that since COVID, and a lot of places are like telecommuting now and everything, where people working remotely. Mm-hmm. More places now. I guess it depends on the industry you're in.
I don't know. Maybe it's that I've worked from home for 20 years, and I'm a consultant, so maybe I've seen a lot more flexible situations over the years than the typical woman who's out in the workforce. But I have a lot of the companies that I have worked with, including clients, somewhere maybe in the 90s, I feel like in the corporate world, men had to acknowledge that if women are in the workforce and we want our families to, the human race to perpetuate and people to continue to have children, we're going to have to make this a place where family has to be balanced a little bit with work. Otherwise, either there's going to be no more children, or we're not going to be able to take advantage of, the women who've come into the workplace. Like I said, I acknowledge the fact that maybe my perspective is different, and I've been luckier than some people because I've had a more flexible type of work format longer than a lot of other people. I coached a lot of people through COVID who suddenly were working from home and didn't know what to do with themselves, or how to deal with their children at the same time. I tried to help a lot of people through that because it's hard to be thrown into. It's a lot. It's a whole different kind of balancing act.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, you're ahead of your time.
Maybe a little.
All right, next was another one that I never heard of before, Crossing Delancey. This speaks more to their the Jewish heritage, so I think that's why they picked this movie. Starred Amy Irving. So yeah, this seemed interesting. I wouldn't mind checking this one out. Were you guys familiar? Yeah.
Yeah, it's another one that's on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Yep, so check that out. Suzanne, this is one I mentioned to you that most of it, I think all of it, takes place in New York. So I don't know if you had a chance to see it or not, but
I didn't go back and see Crossing Delancey. I didn't see it at the time, but I kind of feel like I have because I mentioned I worked for some film companies. I worked for Columbia Pictures, and after that I worked for a company named Swank Motion Pictures that sold second-run films to like libraries and camps and airline companies and such. And they had a great big catalog, and Crossing Delancey was actually very popular at that time. And it was, and I was responsible to kind of explain it to a lot of people. So like we kind of got the lowdown on Crossing Delancey, even though I never saw it. So I sort of feel like I did. And yeah, it was a very New York movie, and, kind of into that whole milieu. I think it's also one of the few, like, more like a romance movie that they've got on that, we've got on his list here. It seemed a lot lighter and sweeter and, boy meets girl, even if it did come into what she was kind of like deciding whether to go with the fancy publisher or the guy who sells pickles, who's like her soulmate. So, but that's like such a romance trope, like they've made that movie 80 billion times since.
Yeah, but most Hallmark movies and stuff. Yeah,
all Hallmark. No, not most. All.
Yeah, this is just like a Jewish Hallmark movie.
Right.
Yeah, at least the Lifetime movies have a murder in them.
So. Right. Yeah. Yes, that's the difference. Yeah.
Sorry, Suzanne, you were going to say something.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Well, then that can bring us to our final one, 1989, The Fabulous Baker Boys. And I think I saw this one pretty close to when it came out, like on video. And yeah, I don't think, it was like 1920. I wasn't in a, boy. So I wasn't the target audience for that. So I was kind of bored with that. So maybe I would like it more now.
I haven't seen it.
Really? It's a fun movie. It's an interesting movie. It got a whole lot of attention, and if I remember, didn't Michelle Pfeiffer win an Oscar, I think, for that? I think she might have.
Oh,
there was
maybe.
There was a big fuss over. She does this. Have you seen the movie? No.
Yeah.
You saw it a long time ago, but you didn't really pay attention to it.
Oscar nomination.
Oh, she was nominated.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, she's a great actress, and she did a ton of movies in the 80s. She did this one. I mean, she was a singer. Number one, I was a singer, so I kind of, I relate to any movies about singers. But it was a little on the ordinary side, if you ask me. What was kind of extraordinary about the movie was, and he talks about the scene, she does this very steamy number in this very tight red velvet dress, like a torch song, and she does it on top of a piano.
On the piano, yeah.
That's
the scene I remember.
Right. Well, it was a hot scene. She did a beautiful job. And it was a pivotal scene emotionally between her and Jeff Bridges, who was playing the piano at the time. Because they finally, I think, acknowledged that something big was going to happen between them. That they really had the hots for each other, or what have you. So that scene was really good. And Michelle Pfeiffer was good. She's always good, and she always looks great, even when she's playing. She was playing kind of a down on your luck type of character. She wasn't very glamorous. It wasn't that kind of singer. It was like a, I'm never really going to be famous, but I'm going to keep singing type of, lounge entertainer. Not like I'm going to be a big star. So, it was an okay movie. I wouldn't say that it was. I wasn't quite as big a supporter of it as a lot of other people, in the industry, I think, or anybody who was hot from Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah, and also it had Jeff and Beau Bridges in it. I don't know were they in that for any other movies together. I remember that one because they were in it together.
Yeah, it's true. There was that hook that they actually were brothers and they were playing brothers. So
yeah,
and they caused there was conflict between the brothers. That was because they were, of course. How could you not fall in love with Michelle Pfeiffer?
Michelle Pfeiffer, yeah. So
a little
bit of a love triangle there.
In love with Susie Diamond, who she was playing, and there was conflict there over. Even if one wasn't as much in love with her, it was then it was throwing off the power dynamic between the two brothers. So it was an interesting triangle.
And I think that covers that book. I think we covered all the topics that I wanted to cover too. We talked about
than I thought we would.
yeah.
Movies that he mentioned, yeah.
Yeah, because I wanted to touch on about about the 80s and everything, and we touched on that with all the VCR and why it would be a lot of people's favorite decade. Yeah, we touched on everything. Yeah, and the representation in all these movies between female driven. And altogether, I listed the themes across all the movies. There was the motherhood with Aliens and Baby Boom, work on an identity with 9 to 5 and Baby Boom, family and loss with terms of endearment and country and heritage and culture was crossing Delancey, and queerness and identity to come back to the Five and Dime Jimmy Dean. So and some of these still resonate strongly today. So these movies are kind of timeless. Well, maybe not The Color Purple, but we'll have to see. I'll have to watch that.
Well, I think the thing that's inspiring for me anyway is that going back and watching these movies that I haven't seen in 30 years, 40 years in some cases, just the different perspective that you have now.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we're the age that we are, we'll just say that. Mm-hmm. And so just how like you had mentioned, Fabulous Baker Boys, the time period didn't interest you when you were younger. And, in 1989, I could find other things to do with those 2 hours of my life. But now I may go back and watch it and just say, okay, what am I getting out of this movie now that maybe I wouldn't have back then?
Mm-hmm.
So, but it goes for almost everything on this list. I think I've watched Aliens every month since it came out. So, so I don't really have I don't have this big time period.
It's grown with you.
Yes. So, and it still holds up, but so many good movies on that list, and some that I think in some ways maybe like a Crossing Delancey or something that may be forgotten about, and come back to the Five and Dime Jimmy Dean, same deal. So
yeah, I'm interested in checking that out, especially with that cast. And yeah, I love the idea because I did watch the trailer of it, and it totally looks like it was a play. Like you could tell that they filmed it that way and everything. I like those types of things.
Yeah, well, and I mentioned it last week when we were having the technical difficulties. I think that was one of Cher's first film roles.
Mm-hmm.
And you watch that, and it's clear that she is going to have a very successful film career.
Okay.
She's just that good in the movie. And then Kathy Bates is in it as well. And you'll see some other characters like, oh, I recognize that person. So it's a really good movie. I was shocked. I thought I'm gonna, kind of like Fabulous Baker Boys. I'm like, I'm gonna hate this, but it was really good. It was really good, and I'll probably feel the same way about Fabulous Baker Boys when I get around to watching it.
Mm-hmm.
And the color purple. We'll see how that goes. So yeah.
Read the book. Read the book.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah,
maybe I'll do both. So,
well, yeah, could do that.
All right, and then we picked the book for August, The Celebrants by Stephen Rowley. I think it's a newer book as well, but it's about people of our generation. It's 5 friends. I think it's 5 friends that are around our age, and they gather together every so often. They had a friend that died, and then ever since then they support each other, so that every once in a while they meet up at this one place. And it's kind of feels like the Big Chill combination of Big Chill, Breakfast Club, with all the all the different personalities, and we can relate because they flash back to the 90s when they were in college. Maybe a little St. Elmo's Fire in there too, but then it goes back to modern day. Not exactly. Yeah. No bongos or anything in here. Stalking.
Suzanne, you weren't involved with back then, but we did a St. Elmo's Fire podcast, and I had never seen the movie. And I regret that I actually did now and watch the movie.
Did you trash St. Elmo's Fire? I love St. Elmo's Fire.
Oh my gosh! What a bunch of spoiled brats.
St. Elmo's Fire.
I mean, the Brat Pack is the spoiled Brat Pack.
St. Elmo's Fire.
Oh.
Yeah. Well,
oh my gosh!
I don't know that I'd argue with you on that, but at the time, being the same age as those characters, I wanted all those same things.
Okay. I so much more related and liked the Breakfast Club than I did St. Elmo's Fire. But yeah. The only good thing was the theme song. But
I'll see. So that's another good point. Like some of these movies we might not have understood, related to back then, but we do now. But then this is a case where we related to it back then, and now we see it like totally different now.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing about that movie is I did not see it when it came out.
Yeah,
and then I saw it at 20 years later, and so I'm seeing it as like this grumpy old man, as opposed to somebody that was living it at the time.
Yeah. So I wonder if you would have seen it differently if you did see it back in the day. Yeah, so that's interesting. So yeah, that just goes to show like you see it something in a different way when you're older, good or bad.
What she got?
Can you say?
No, it's blurry.
This is a script of St. Elmo's Fire from Columbia Pictures from 1980.
Oh.
Wait, I'm going to take off more. Maybe I'm not going to be able to figure out how to do this quickly enough.
I'm looking on my Facebook on the phone. It's blurry on my screen, but it might be fine on the social media part.
Well, it's almost like impossible though for me.
No, it's blurry there too. Yeah. But still, we'll take your word for it. It's a script from St. Elmo's Fire.
Kind of a prized possession that I took. I had them take this home, or make me a copy. It's dated October 8th, 1984, and it has one of my boss's names on it, so I know it's real. But anytime somebody talks about this movie on social media, I take pictures of this and send it and post it. Love it. But no, I could see, there's a lot of holes in the plot, so I kind of get it if, you watch it now as an adult, and I'm like, what the heck? How does she afford that apartment?
Well, she couldn't, but
yeah, that's true. In the end, I guess she couldn't, so it's not that much of a problem. I came and took all her shit away, but I'm sorry. I get emotional.
It's kind of like the same thing with Ferris Bueller's. That's another one when you go back to now. So, what a prick he was. Yeah.
I know people kind of resent Ferris Bueller now. They're like, Jeannie was right.
Yeah, exactly. I relate to her.
She was pissed.
Yeah.
I still love Ferris Bueller too, though. It was so much fun.
Yeah. Now that this opens things up, it makes me wonder, want to go back and revisit some other movies. So I'll have to do some research and see if there's anything that I might not have seen before, or taken for granted, or didn't understand. If I go back and watch it and see it in a different way now. So yeah, and then maybe you could watch a movie with my mom and
see how that goes. Report back to us. Say, I was always watching movies with my mom, so it wouldn't be anything different than ever. I go to visit them now. We'll watch 10 movies, all day long. We're watching movies.
Okay, so I guess we could wrap things up now. See, Suzanne, you want to tell people how they can find you or your book? Got anything going on?
Yeah. Okay, well, I am the author of Once in a Lifetime, which is a book that takes place in the 80s, girls on college leave, and it's a lot of new wave music and pop culture and art and such. So you can find me on SuzanneMattaboni.com, or there's a onceinaLifetimenovel.com site. And I'm on Facebook and TikTok and Instagram, mostly Facebook these days. But, it's fun.
And Del, you going to be coming back soon?
Yeah, we're back now.
Oh, you're back now? Okay.
Yeah, we started yesterday. Nice. So yesterday
morning.
Oh,
shoot. You're 50 minutes into your show. Shoot.
Yeah. I'm 51 minutes. Yeah, 51 minutes into the show.
Boy.
Now 52.
Sorry.
So, yeah, it's double duty. It's rough. But yeah, it's the 80s at 8 on WEDM. You can download the app. We're on for 4 hours, 4 totally different shows. So yeah, check it out. 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Saturday and Sunday.
Awesome. Yep. I highly recommend that. And you can find me at GenX Journeys and Instagram, Facebook, genxjourneys.net is the website that I need to update. And then you also are blowing up on TikTok now. Is Gen X is doing a big takeover. That's the thing to do now. So yeah. So if you're Gen X and you want to hop on TikTok, you put one of those emojis of the big red X in your name, and you're gonna end up having a big huge following because we're all taking it over. So yeah, it's a lot of fun on there. So yeah. It's so funny now. I'm following all these people. So now I'm seeing all Gen X people on there now. I'm not seeing all the stupid garbage on there. So
more fun.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah. And yep, and like I said, the celebrants, and I'm probably like almost a quarter of the way through. And yeah, it's pretty good. So yeah, interesting characters. So I love that stuff. So yeah, so check that out, and then we'll see you next month, and I'll see how this recording comes out and streams and work out any bugs. And I want to thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time. And remember,
be excellent to each other. And party on, dudes!
Sit, Lizzie, sit. Good dog.